Hello, everybody. We are live. I didn't realize I was that close to being there. Got kind of caught by surprise. You want to take care of that for me? So tonight, I wanted to say thank you to Renee. She made dinner for us. She made my favorite, tuna casserole, which was awesome. Yum, yum. By the way, what was dessert? I don't think I had any.
Cupcakes, the caramel apple.
Oh my God.
No, I can't. I want to, but I can't.
I'll eat yours.
Thank you for that. I hate you, man. So tonight we were, as is our habit, we talked before class about something, and tonight we were talking about sounds of hell. I had heard this many years before. I came across it on the internet. I was not looking for it, and it made a huge impact on our class. And for those of you that are on Facebook or on tape, are we up and running on tape, by the way?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I would suggest you go search that out. I don't remember the exact, do you remember the name of it? It was something like Sounds of Hell, or, well, Google it, you'll find it. And here's what we decided. It is scary, and it's meant to be scary, but the reason that it's scary is because those of our loved ones that we're not sure about, or even our friends, we don't even want our worst enemy to go and have to endure what we hear on the tape. And that video or that audio is not meant to scare you, it is meant to motivate you. When it comes to your friends, your family, anybody, we should proclaim Jesus so that they don't have to go through what is on that audio. One of the biggest problems that we as Christians have when we go to witness for Jesus, which, by the way, Jesus only asked us to do one thing, and that is to be a witness. He didn't ask us to be brain surgeons or attorneys or anything. He asked us to be witnesses. So let's be a witness. So when we witness for Jesus, I have noticed that most Christians are afraid of some things. And the biggest one is, what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to? Or, what if I look like a fool? What if they make fun of me? The audio that you will hear when you listen to that will overcome all of your fear. And that is the reason that it is there. It is not there to do anything other than to motivate you to witness for Jesus. If that audio does nothing other than that, and especially for those of you that have lost loved ones recently, which I have, and you don't know that they were saved or not, which I don't, this audio is both scary and yet motivating. Scary because I don't know where they are right now, and I don't know where they're going to spend time until the white throne judgment. I don't know the answer to that, and that scares me. But it also motivates me for all of my friends and family that are still alive, that I have an opportunity to go and save, to give God's word to them so that they are saved and don't have to spend eternity in there. I believe the name of it is Sounds from Hell. Now, there was an author that wrote a book and did this years ago, which is where I had originally heard it. And the audio on that one was a lot better than the one that is on this particular one. But when I heard it, it brought back all the memories of and the reasons for listening to it and the reasons for putting it out there. So I would strongly suggest that at some point, now I got to tell you, it's a little scary, and you need to be strong when you do it. So get prayed up and then go listen to it and remember it, because it will motivate you for life to go out and to witness for Jesus. If for no other reason, then they don't have to go through this. It's 24/7 of what you're going to hear. There's no peace, there's no quiet, there's no ending. It is constant. Well, that's what we talked about tonight. Now we are going over 1 Kings, am I right? And who wrote down what chapter we were in?
5, we left off at verse 18.
We made it all the way to 5?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think we made it that far, but
We did.
Okay. 5:18.
Verse 18.
5:18. Oh, I stopped a thing. Well, I'll finish that little bit and then I'll let somebody else start chapter 6. 5:18. So Solomon's builders, Hiram's builders, and the Jebusites quarried them, and they prepared timber and stones to build the temple. Now remember, he had negotiated with the king of another country, I think it was Tyre, and they shipped the stuff down, and they sent people down, and they negotiated how the payment was going to be made. And so now here we are at the end of chapter 5. Solomon has just barely been king, and David has provided a lot of the material to build God's house. And Solomon has it on his heart to build God's house, so he contacts the king of Tyre to get him whatever material he needs. The people have come down, brought the material, they've got it ready, and now they're getting ready to build God's house. Okay, somebody want to read from chapter 6?
I will.
Okay.
And it came to pass in the 480th year, after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. Now the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, its length was 60 cubits.
Okay, hang on a minute. Does anybody know how long a cubit is?
I do not.
Okay.
it's about 18 inches according to
Well,
the notes.
if you take from your shoulder to your middle finger, that's a cubit. And it varied from race to race and from people to people, but the averages, he says, is about 18. I think for some races it was like 16, and for others it was like 19. But I think 18 was pretty much the average. But from your elbow to here is a cubit. They didn't have tape measures.
Okay.
All right, so that's a cubit. Go ahead.
Its width was 20, and its height 30 cubits. The vestibule in front of the sanctuary of the house was 20 cubits long across the width of the house, and the width of the vestibule. Okay, what is a vestibule?
The vestibule is the entrance, the beginning, like
Okay.
we would call it an entryway, but the
Yes.
vestibule would be where you walk into the church. That's the
It's
vestibule.
kind of like the front of
In
Clementine.
southern states it's called a foyer.
Foyer. Yes.
Okay. Extended 10 cubits from the front of the house. And he made for the house windows with beveled frames.
Okay, and just to give you an idea, so 10 cubits, if this is 18 inches, okay, 10 times that is 180 inches divided by 12 is 10, what is that, 16 feet? You see how you do the math? So 18 inches per cubit, so when they say 10 cubits, it's not 10 feet, it's like 15 or 16, I haven't done the math in my head, but just to get so you can get an idea how wide and how high and how long things are.
Almost like a foot and a half per cubit.
About a foot and a half, yes. Actually, exactly a foot and a half.
Against the wall of the temple he built chambers all around, against the walls of the temple, all around the sanctuary and the inner sanctuary. Thus he made side chambers all around it. Like a box in a box.
Right?
The lowest chamber was 5 cubits wide, the middle was 6 cubits wide, and the third was 7 cubits wide.
Okay, so okay, so he's building the church, okay? And let's say that it's, shaped like a rectangle. The room, he's talking about rooms off of the sides. Okay, so if you walked into it, you would be seeing these rooms off of the side, and he's giving you the measurements of the rooms that are up. So it appears that they are like small, bigger, 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 biggest. Okay? Kind of like if you've gone to a large church and you walk in where they have like Bible study classes and the cafeteria and the study rooms and those are the rooms off as you get to the church, that's what they're doing here. So that's what they're talking about. Okay, go ahead.
What is that? Verse 6, right? The lowest chamber was 5 cubits wide, the middle was 6 cubits. For he made narrow ledges around the outside of the temple, so that the support beams would not be fastened into the walls of the temple. And the temple.
No, hang on a minute. Now this is an interesting thing. Why did he not want the walls attached, or the support beams attached to the wall? There's a reason for that. When the Jews were out in the desert and God was telling them how to build his house, there was not to be any metal, or what they had to do was to build it so that there was no man-made things on there. So what they did is they built the outside and put the support beams on that. And then anytime they had to attach anything, they did it with wood. There was no metal screws, no man-made stuff was to be in God's house. So when they said he built the lead and then put the support beams on there, the reason is because this is God's house. We're going to do this without using man's tools. Okay? All right, go ahead. What verse are you on, by the way?
We start in 7.
All right.
And the temple, when it was being built, was built with stone finished at the quarry, so that no hammer or chisel or any iron tool was heard in the temple while it was being built.
That's the same logic, same reason.
The doorway for the middle story was on the right side of the temple. They went up by stairs to the middle story, and from the middle to the third.
Okay. So, now let me explain to you what the temple looked like. The temple was a longer than narrow structure, and it had 3 areas. Okay? There was the outer temple, which is what it was called, and that's where everybody would go. Now remember when Jesus came and he overthrew the temple, the money changers in the temple? This is where they were. This is where the animals were. This is where the money changers were. Women were allowed in here. Okay? This was the big place. From there they went to the middle chamber. Now the middle chamber is where services were held. Only men were allowed in here. No children, no women. Only men. Okay? Behind that was called the Holy of Holies. And nobody was allowed back there except the priest that had been dedicated that year to go in there and do the work of God on behalf of the people. And back here is where whenever the priest went in, they always tied a rope around his feet. Because if he missed a sin when he was preparing to go in, God struck him dead. And they had to pull him out like a piece of meat, and then they had to get another priest to do that. And the reason for that was, just like with the tools, nothing man-made goes before God. In the Holy of Holies, nothing with sin goes before God. And if you went in, God struck you dead. So when we're talking here, now, remember I said earlier about the roofs going off. So we had the outer chamber, the inner chamber, and then the Holy of Holies, and off on the side, there was different rooms. This is a huge structure. Okay? Okay, go ahead. Where are you at, by the way?
Verse 9.
Go ahead.
So he built the temple and finished it, and he paneled the temple with beams and boards of cedar. And a cedar, funny, it just struck me, it's one of the most high sought after woods there still is.
Yep,
It's
that's
love the
right.
smell of it. And he built side chambers against the entire temple, each 5 cubits high. They were attached to the temple with cedar beams. Then the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, concerning this temple which you are building, if you walk in my statutes, execute my judgments, keep all my commandments, and walk in them, then I will perform my word with you, which I spoke to your father David.
Okay, so Solomon's building God's house. And he's just about done. Okay? And God comes to him and says, if you do A, B, C, D, then I will live there. Now let's look at A, B, C, D. If you walk in my statutes, what's a statute?
Well, like better terms, it's like being Jesus-like. Being walking in his laws.
That's right. That's right. Execute my judgments. What does that mean?
Whatever he says goes.
That's right. Keep all of my commandments. Oh, ouch. How many people can keep all of God's commandments?
Well, without him, I don't think any of us can.
I came
Even with him?
close.
Yeah.
I think
Did
I
you?
hit 7.
Wow. I break 7 every day.
Yeah.
So, but remember now, we are under law. And I don't remember the number, it's like 600 and some different laws that they have to keep. And the Jews kept saying, yes, we can do that, we can do that. And God's whole point to giving all of the laws was for the people to stay and to understand, yeah, I can't do that. But they never did. They always say, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, and then they always fell short. And right here God says, keep all of my commandments and walk in them.
It's kind of like what it says in the New Testament about not being just hearers of the word, but also being doers.
Doers, that's exactly right. He said, then I will perform my word with you, which I spoke to your father David. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel. He made a great promise there, but he made it based on keeping all of my commandments, which nobody can. Ouch. All right. Go ahead.
So Solomon built the temple and finished it. And he built the inside walls of the temple with cedar boards from the floor of the temple to the ceiling. He paneled the inside with wood, and he covered the floor of the temple with planks of cypress. Then he built the 20-cubit room at the rear of the temple, from floor to ceiling, with cedar boards he built it inside as the inner sanctuary, as the most holy place.
That's the Holy of Holies I was telling you about.
And that's where the veil was, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And in front of it, the temple sanctuary was 40 cubits long. And inside the temple was cedar carved with ornamental buds and open flowers. All was cedar. There was no stone to be seen. Why would, no stone? Because they would have had to been carved by man or whatever, right? But
Yes,
the wood
well,
was carved by man too, but.
Well, yeah, but cedar and cypress was like really rare. So in the Holy of Holies, they wanted nothing, and I think as we go on, unless I'm mistaken, it's eventually gonna be covered with gold,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because this is where God's gonna be. You wanna make it the
Purified.
best. Rocks are abundant over in Israel. I mean, there's nothing but rocks.
Yeah.
So they wanted it to be special and unique.
There he was. Verse 19. And he prepared the inner sanctuary inside the temple to set the ark of the covenant of the Lord there.
Okay, now what is the Ark of the Covenant?
Isn't that the container that held the manna?
Yes? And where did it
And
come
the
from?
Ten
Ten Commandments.
Commandments and.
Yes, and the stick that Moses held.
and
Where,
okay.
where did it come from?
But did Moses build that?
Well, the people of Moses built that, very good. When they were in the desert, God gave them specific directions on how to build that, and it takes like 2 or 3 chapters to tell them. He gave them specific, and then when they lost it in battle, and David brought it back, and he was carrying it back, and the guy got killed, this is the same Ark of the Covenant. So now-
Because he accidentally touched it, didn't he?
Well, because
And
he
he
had,
slipped and he,
right. So now Solomon is building God's house, and he's bringing the Ark of the Covenant with these holy things into it. Okay, so he's built the house, now he's bringing the holy thing in. Okay, so that's where we're at with this. Go ahead.
okay, but he said where it came from, but man built it, but
By God's
design,
instructions,
right?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Okay, verse 20. Then the inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 20 cubits high.
That's 30 by 30 by 30.
It's definitely a square box.
Mm-hmm.
He overlaid it with the pure gold and overlaid the altar of cedar.
So he laid it with silver, then he covered it with gold.
With what? Silver?
Gold.
Yeah.
He overlaid it with gold.
Yeah. And then the altar of cedar. Verse 21. So Solomon overlaid the inside of the temple with pure gold. He stretched gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary and overlaid it with gold. The whole temple he overlaid with gold until he had finished all the temple. Also he overlaid with gold the entire altar that was by the inner sanctuary.
Okay, now I want you to think about this.
That's a lot of gold.
That is a lot of gold. There's a lot of cedar, there's a lot of cypress, and then once you use all of those great things with no man-made tools and no man-made screws or hammers or anything, and then overlaid it with gold. Why would he go to all of that effort? Because there is no place on earth that is suited for God except the most valuable thing that they had to give, and that was gold. So you built the most fabulous structure you could and then covered it all with gold. Everything. Covered it all with gold. Gold chains, gold covering, even covered the cedar with gold. Because God was worthy of nothing less than gold. Yeah?
Is it true that gold though is really pure gold is like really soft,
It is.
and so they'd have to put some metal or something in with that.
Well, it doesn't say that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I am assuming that whoever the workmen were that did that, God gifted them to know that, just like he did when they built the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, because that was over, that had all, it was all gold.
Remember, God told Moses, I have gifted these two workmen with knowledge on how to do that. Get, Bob and Joe, because I've gifted them, they already know how to do this. And they're out in the middle of the desert, so of course that had to come from God. I'm guessing the same thing happened here. Whatever it needed to happen, God made sure that it happened.
I'm thinking, man, even if they just melted it, just to keep it hot enough to where you would pour it, I'm surprised it
Yeah,
wouldn't
but it
catch
still
something on
would,
fire.
yeah, but
You
it
know?
would still, I think it would still be too soft, like butter.
Mm-hmm.
There would be no form, nothing to keep it, like water's frozen, but as soon as it kind of melts or gets a little warm, it's gonna run.
Yeah.
That's my thought with the gold, it probably just kind of,
Well, I don't
Forgive
know.
my ignorance, but is this temple, is it still stands today?
No.
I didn't think so, but
and
I
that's
couldn't
supposed to
be
be,
sure.
like the rebuilding of the temple is supposed to be one of the
Yes.
things of the second
Yeah,
coming
it-
of Christ.
Duh.
Right.
It's been torn down, destroyed what, twice now?
Twice. Right.
Yeah, the wars and stuff.
Right, when they rebuilt it the third time, which I guess they've got the ground bought, and depending on the stories that you hear, they've got plans to rebuild it. They just haven't started yet.
I know they reorganized the Sanhedrin.
Yeah. Well, I've heard different, 20 years ago they were supposedly starting it, so who knows? But, yeah, the third time is supposed to mark the beginning of the coming of Christ. The second coming. Any other questions?
Yeah, is the Antichrist, is he supposed to put himself up in the temple or something and proclaim him a
Well,
Israel or something?
Based on the book of the Revelation, there will be an Antichrist comes. We'll know it's him because he gets shot in the head and recovers. And, then he will make there's a whole sequence of events that happens. There'll be 7.5 years of peace. Then he makes a deal with the Jews and breaks it. There's a whole lot of things that happen, but yeah, after the temple is built, and then he puts up, and I can't remember the term they use, anyway, he sets himself up as God, the Antichrist does, and takes over the temple. And that starts the 7.5 years of non-peace. And that's when it all goes really poorly. Okay? But we'll get there when we get to the book of the Revelation. Right now, he's just building the temple for the second time. First time, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Where are we at?
23.
Okay.
Inside the inner sanctuary, he made 2 cherubim of olive wood.
Do we know what a cherubim is?
A little angel-y thing, isn't it? Just the wings?
Lots of wings. Now, the cherubim keeps showing up. In the Garden of Eden, when he kicks Adam and Eve out, he puts 2 cherubim to guard it so that nobody can come in. When he builds the Ark of the Covenant, he puts 2 cherubim in there. And one is on either side and the wings join in the middle. And here we are, we're building the temple, and again, he puts the cherubim in there. Now, do I know what the cherubim represents to God? I do not. But we know they're important and they are protecting of whatever God decides. So when he puts the cherubim in there, and he puts them inside the inner sanctuary, they are obviously there to protect the inner sanctuary. Go ahead.
Verse 24. One wing of the cherub was 5 cubits, and the other wing of the cherub was 5 cubits. 10 cubits from the tip of one wing to the tip of the other.
That's 15 feet, by the way.
And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both cherubim were the same size and shape. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits,
That's 15 feet.
and so was the other cherub. Then he set the cherub inside the inner room,